I know I've been on a Divorce Diaries rant for quite a while now, but I just want to take a break to just remind you about this podcast and how I record it. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast everywhere. Seriously. On Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Again, that's anchor.fm to get started, or download the Anchor app.
This guy is nuts. Is he really making daily recordings of his possible divorce and releasing it as a podcast? They both cheated on each other? She's making six figures and still doesn't contribute to any joint endeavors financially? Why is she still with him? Why is he still with her? I can't wait for the next episode. This helped me be a better wife. So this is how men think. I hate my husband less now. I understand my wife more now. These are some of the listener comments to the Divorce Diaries podcast. All over the map, I know. These anonymous accounts of events should resonate with anyone that has been married, is married, or is preparing for marriage, and helps couples avoid pitfalls as they might prepare for marriage. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else. At Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
Welcoming myself and everyone back to the rebooted Divorce Diaries podcast, where I am recording everything that pertains to my life. Not necessarily always about my divorce that's pending. Looming is the word, looming. Pending means something's filed. There's nothing filed yet, but it's looming. And the surprises that I've frequently gotten over the course of my marriage, that's what's going to be the diary entry for today. I think we all do like surprises, and we probably equally don't like surprises. Like, this is inspired by this guy, Kevin Samuels. If you don't know who he is I don't know what order he might put these things in, but he is a style and image consultant, a professional one, where, people pay him substantial amounts of money to help them with their style, the perception, the way they move in the world, maybe even their branding. I don't really know. He's also a YouTuber, which is how I was introduced to him. He produces content on lots of social media platforms also, or maybe one, I don't know, just Instagram maybe, I'm not sure. But he's an influencer by way of influencing people on social. He has a YouTube channel that's pretty popular, and he's been on a lot of folks' shows. And if I were to try to appropriately condense Kevin Samuels in an elevator pitch, I would say he is a twice divorced, I want to say over 50 years old man that provides truth, knowledge, and tries to impart wisdom on most people, and most of his content is around, as it specifically relates to relationships, heterosexual male-female relationships. He tries to help us circumnavigate and or understand how traditions should maybe be adhered to or abandoned, how social customs may have shaped the way that we do things now, and exploring a lot about how marriages fall apart because we may have misplaced expectations, goals, perspectives, whatever. He tries to help reprogram, or program, to be honest, the perspectives of people and he doesn't begrudge them of anything that they want. He just tends to say, hey, if that's what you want, great, but here's what you should expect if this is what you want. Or here's what you should expect to do if this is what you want. Or here's what you should expect if you are not willing to do those things. So, and most of the things are pretty simple. They're not very easy to do or accomplish. But let's just say, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that restaurant called Mission Barbecue, but it's a place that sells a barbecue, obviously, but pulled pork, brisket, chicken, some turkey sausages, stuff like that. There's a lot of meat sold there, mac and cheese, rolls. We could even use a place like Texas Roadhouse also. Steaks, it's called Texas Roadhouse. You can pick almost any cut of steak, get that sent to your table, your perfect cut. He likes to maybe talk to vegans who went to Mission Barbecue or Texas Roadhouse and were upset at the menu selection. He tries to very easily explain to the vegan, you're a vegan, you don't eat meat, but you came into Texas Roadhouse. And most of the time, he's talking to the vegan that went into Texas Roadhouse and then pitched a fit that Texas Roadhouse didn't serve lettuce wraps. He tries to disabuse people of their poor conceptions, but it's mostly around relationships. So I had an expectation of I would be doing things as a teammate with my partner, my parent partner. My wife wasn't my wife initially, then we got married and we had more kids, and so I kind of moved through life, calling her on the phone or texting her or something. Hey, thinking of doing this for the kids. What do you think? Where do you stand? How do you feel? She'd reply how she thought, what she thinks we should do, how she felt. Okay, cool. Lots of back and forth, and I would typically do that. There would be a lot of things that might happen that my wife would do where I would find out later. That brings me back to the surprise thing that I talked about a little bit earlier. Surprises are good when, you're coming home, you're expecting dinner, and you were surprised with your favorite Italian meal. You didn't count on it. You thought it was meatloaf night, but it wasn't. You got your favorite meal, and that was a surprise. You're like, wow, that's a pleasant surprise. I was thought of, and now I'm sitting down eating my favorite meal with the person that I love a little bit more now because they thought of me. Those surprises are always great. A surprise overdraft fee at your bank, that sucks. Surprise that your credit card got declined, that sucks. Because you got to investigate what's going on, and did I overdraw the account? Like, what? Did someone steal it? Is it a fraud alert? Like, do I have to get a new one now? Oh my gosh, can I actually make this purchase? Those not so good surprises, they just cause a snowball effect of kind of worry, fret, stuff like that. Now, some of the surprises that I got, like my wife just got which I don't get mad about it anymore because I'm understanding now how my marriage actually was working. My wife, she and I both had some criteria for one of our kids to stay in the house, and I mentioned this in anger in my past Divorce Diaries podcast, where I just kind of, when I was bitching and complaining and losing my shit and yelling into the microphone and just beside myself. I was sad, I was angry, I was frustrated, you felt my betrayal that I felt just in every one of those recorded episodes, and it was horrible. That's why they're all down now. Like I said, if I ever decide to put them back up, it'll be on Patreon, maybe, because I feel that those episodes could help people that might be struggling with anger and don't know. If they're struggling with anger, them listening to me bitch and complain and come from a place of hurt, maybe they can identify with that and they can say, oh shit, I sound just like that. I feel that same way. And they can take some steps to maybe try to get themselves some professional help. They can reevaluate their relationship. and try to improve their situation instead of finding themselves in, a really shitty, codependent, thank you, sir, finding themselves in a really codependent, toxic relationship still, if that's not what they want, or at least realize that's what they want, because that's what I had to do, and I'm still doing that and working through that with my therapist, because after all of these years of being an arrogant know-it-all, thinking I could solve my own problems and fix my shit without the help of anybody else, I was disabused of that, and I'm like, I am decades in living this life that is sad to me. It's sad, and I feel like I'm depressed, even though I have good things to be happy about in my life. My perspective was off, like, because my wife did certain things, I got so mad at her for other things, and then sometimes maybe when she wouldn't even do anything, I would still be really upset because we hadn't really dealt with the bullshit that she did do. So I'm just angry about most things in general all the time. And it was just really bad. Like I'm going to give a little story about a really bad surprise that I got, and just all of the things that were not good that came from that surprise. In order for my son to stay in our house, hey, I'm like, no weed, because he was a minor, and I mean, he didn't have any ailments where he actually needed weed, and he was not professionally evaluated. I'll say that he was not professionally evaluated where marijuana was prescribed in any form. You're just kind of doing it, behind our back, typical quote unquote teenager sort of stuff, I guess. And I've never consumed, I've never been a user, and so I don't know anything about it. Don't know anything about it, just kind of the scared stuff that's put on PSAs, like, don't smoke, don't drink, it'll kill your brain. And that's what I did. That's how I lived my life, and he was different. And my wife's criteria was you've got to go to school. Mine was no drug use until you are of legal age or something, whatever. And hers was you have to go to college. And he complied, and he went to college, and I thought he was complying with not consuming these substances. I have cameras set up outside of my home, and sometimes I get alerts, and I see if there's someone traipsing around our home on the outside. Is there a fox or a raccoon? Which animal's getting into our trash? And it kind of monitors the area where the cars are parked, so in case something's stolen, I got it on record. Can submit it to the insurance company, get our money back, no problem. And now, sorry, little brain fart there. Because I'm looking back, seeing the footage in my head, but after this decree was made, I'm watching on the video cameras my son consuming marijuana, smoking it behind our house on the cameras. I'm like, what's going on? Okay. I go to my wife, hey, I just caught him. He's still doing it. Why isn't he complying? Like, I'm so upset that he's not listening to me. So I just had one really rough conversation with my wife. I then saw him doing it again, and I go to him and I, rip him a new one. Why aren't you listening to me? You're disobeying me. All of these things. What's your problem? What's your deal? Cut it out. If you want to live here, you got to play by my rules. You complied with what mom wanted, and you went to school, but you're not complying with me. Blah blah blah. And I think I maybe chewed him out one more time, and I just kind of threw my hands up in frustration, going to talk to my wife again. This is bullshit. He's not listening. I'm so fucking mad. What the hell? Like, I don't get any respect around here. He's got to respect authority, or he's going to have a rough time in life. Why can't he just, oh my gosh. And then my wife throws me the best surprise party ever in that moment, and she says, well, actually, I told him that he could smoke. Just don't do it in unsafe places, and the best place would probably be over here at our house, behind our house. And that way he's not smoking in the house. Because I know you said you didn't want him having contraband in the house. And because another thing, he was kind of driving the car and we were in cars together, so I didn't know if he was ever holding anything and if I would get pulled over and there's worst case scenario plays out in your head. Is there a drug dog? And the drug dog comes and smells everything, and then I go to jail and my life is ruined, and his life is ruined or something. Or what if he leaves something in the car and my wife gets into, oh my gosh, I just was so fearful of these bad things happening. But yeah, she gave me the surprise. I told him to do this. And I said, how long ago? And she's like, well, I mean, like pretty much that day that you said that you didn't want him smoking. Like that's when I told him, like, shortly thereafter, she told him. And I'm like, there was a lot of realizations in that moment. I'm like, and it took me a while. It took me till now, like 2021, August, as I'm recording this right now, for me to really understand the gravity of what these types of surprises for my wife have done to me. Now, what did I learn with that surprise? I learned with that surprise that my wife has no problem going behind my back to, forget the word, to discourage what I said, to undermine me. And my wife has no problem with my son being yelled at by his father when he doesn't have to be. I also learned that there's a little bit, it was bullshit on my son's part, but in its own weird way, it was also righteous on his part. I learned that he wouldn't out my wife. He knew that she told him that he could do something, and he protected their pact. But in that surprise, I also learned that my son and wife made a pact to go behind my back and deceive me, and they both knew it, and they both they let me languish. So not only did I have to experience this betrayal like that, how could you do this? Why? But then my son and I, we have had a very, very difficult relationship. And I will probably say a little bit, I'll go out on a limb and say, maybe did we have a bad relationship because where else was I undermined? Where else did I lay down, quote unquote, the law, and my wife go behind my back to any of my children and allow them to do exactly what I thought we both agreed? And also, why couldn't my wife just say to me, I really don't agree with that? I mean, she did. She's like, I'm not really on board with the whole you saying he can't consume. He thinks it might help him with his anxiety, and I believe him. And I said, well, if you believe him, make him go and get talk to a professional so they can diagnose him with something. You can't just diagnose yourself with anxiety. You don't know for sure. A diagnosis is something official given by a professional. So yeah, let's believe him, but let's have him go in and get himself checked out. And she wasn't willing to do that. So I was surprised there too, where I don't know what I'm supposed to make of that, but you say that you want him helped, but when the rubber meets the road and you could do this thing that could make him qualify the help he feels he needs, you don't want to make him do anything. And you also you were okay with me yelling at him and him going through that. And then finally some integrity crept in and you said, well, I guess I got to tell him. So she told me, because maybe, or else this isn't going to stop. He's not just going to let this go. So you were going to let me live in this lie where I thought that my son is just disobeying me and he's being just difficult and I can't stand him. And that's causing a bigger rift because I'm just like, this kid is just disrespectful and doesn't want to respect authority and doesn't give a fuck about anyone but himself. And I was able to go, and I was allowed to go through life that way for a time. And that means I treated him like he was someone that didn't care about authority, didn't respect anyone, wanted to do his own thing, and said, fuck the world, with 2 big middle fingers. And that really caused rifts with us. And she allowed that to happen. And it was because of something she didn't tell me. Because then I would have just kept the conversation between us. Hey, look, like, and maybe, well, look, I really want, if he thinks he has anxiety, I'm all for it. Let's just try to get him to go and get himself evaluated. Like, come on, like, meet me halfway here. Like, if he's going to be a minor consuming, let's at least make sure that he's getting the right stuff. He's getting healthy stuff. He's like getting the stuff that's actually going to help him, as opposed to him self-prescribing and self-medicating. But no, she didn't allow that to happen. In fact, she just allowed me to yell at him, scream at him, tell him something that he wasn't. And he could have just came out and said, whoa, 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 Dad. You're yelling at me, but Mom told me I can. I would have immediately pivoted over and just had all of my conversations moving forward with her, not my child. And those are the surprises that you have to really know, which I didn't accept it in the past. I didn't accept the fact that my wife is the type of person that goes behind my back and undermines me. That's why I'm still recording these episodes, because there is a diary that I can make, because there are things that I'm learning, and there are things that I want to capture, and there are things that I want to understand, there are things that I have hope for, there are things that there are realizations that I'm coming to, and I'm like, you know, before I married her, if I had known this woman that you're standing across from will undermine you and not tell you or talk to you about it. Granted, let's go with it. There could be reasons. I'm hard to talk to. I don't listen. I think I know everything. You could do whatever. And let's say all that's true. I'm a bad communicator and it's my way or the highway, and I'm just overall sort of I'm a bad communicator and it's my way or the highway, and I hurt people's feelings. I do all these things. Okay, fine. You are still a person that goes behind their partner's back, the other parent of the child. You go behind their back and you do and say what you want. And then you don't tell them. And you allow your kid to get yelled at and screamed at because of the misunderstanding. The fact that you've purposefully allowed someone to misunderstand something. That's a really, really big quality in a person that people should know before you decide to get married. How good a communicator is this person? And you're going to have to go through things like, there's no way I would have known this beforehand, but I also wasn't looking for it beforehand. So I don't know what my wife definitely gave me plenty of reasons not to get married. I chose to focus on the fact that I loved her. I thought she was sweet. I thought she would make a good mom. I felt that she loved me. And I felt that those were all of the building blocks that we would need to have a happy marriage and relationship with its ups and downs. I didn't know that after a longer, good grief, we had our kid very, very young, very young. I mean, there was not a 2 in our age. Like, we were very, very young when we got pregnant, and just not having life or relationship experience, not having many intimate experiences with people in general to just understand how things really work. And what's really important? What's really important is openness, honesty, and respect. My wife is closed dishonest and didn't respect me and doesn't respect me. And is she that way with all things? No. Is she that way with the things that have helped cause the biggest problems in our marriage? Yes. Money, communication, whereabouts, this weed. It's a very big deal what she decides to keep from me. And those are those rough surprises. Those are those credit card decline surprises. Because if you're just at Target and you've got 8 more errands to run that day, and you just had your credit card declined, that's the only one you have on you, and you got a bunch more stuff to pick up. That changes your whole day. You've got to go and, do you go and get the other credit card? Can you run by the ATM? Is the bank open right now? You can get a cash withdrawal. Is there enough in that account because you're doing everything on charge? Like what? You've got to plan like so many things with when that bad surprise happens like that. It's like, oh my gosh, you got to rework, rejigger, retool everything. And that constant rework, retool, rejigger, re-understand, re-acknowledge, reprocess, re-decision make. I've had to do that a lot. And knowing, and I didn't know this consciously, but obviously, if we're getting a divorce now, I've reacted very poorly to a lot of things, very emotionally, very reactionary, because of these types of surprises that my wife typically sprang on me. It just always makes you feel like you're on edge. You're like, what's coming? What's next? What's the next lie? What's the next mistruth? What's the next thing that was omitted? What else do I need to know? What else is there? So I would always ask 20 questions. I would always give the third degree. I would start snooping through her stuff. All of these things. I had no idea that all of this was built because I have trust issues in her because of things that she's done. And she is one of the smartest people in the world. She's definitely smarter than I am. So I did one of two things. I mean, when someone's so much smarter than you, you can say, one, wow, you're really smart. You know exactly what the fuck you're doing, and you're doing it on purpose. And since you're making that choice, this is now a deal breaker for me, and I'm done. Or you can do what I did. You're very smart, too smart to have made this mistake, so I'll just talk to you about it so that your smart brain kicks in and you don't do that again. I'll just appeal to your logic so that we get an understanding, because you're so smart, smarter than me. I'm an idiot. I probably didn't explain it well. You're smart. Let's just talk it through, and we'll both learn something, and then we'll be better, and we'll be the perfect couple that I know we can be. I should have chosen option A. My wife is too smart. She knows exactly what she's doing. These are choices that she's making willfully. She's making these choices willfully and repeatedly, so there is no ambiguity at all in this situation. My wife is who she is. She is the person that keeps information from me. She is the person that tells my kids that they can do things, that she will sit next to me when I say you can't. She doesn't fight it in that moment or say, hey, let's just table this for a second. She lets me think that things are going to move forward one way, and she goes behind my back and does it another way. So, yes. Was I a bad communicator? Yep. That had something to do with it. Was I kind of controlling? Yes, I definitely was. That had something to do with it because I felt like things were out of my control. And I didn't feel like things were out of my control, like getting a flat tire is out of your control. You just you lament that you can't go where you want. You change the tire and it sucks. But when things are in your control, like you could have just told me, or why didn't you just tell me? That was in our control. That's not the flat tire surprise. That's the willful misleading of someone. So after all the time that I've been willfully misled, I'm now accepting the fact that everything my wife has done has been a willful choice. And I'm not begrudging her. She may have her reasons why she deceived me or allowed me to be deceived. Yep, she may have 100% valid reasons for that. But she still deceived me. And I guess my takeaway, I was supposed to be recording that even married women are single mothers. That's not all women, but both people have to be on the same team, both parents. Because when one parent starts doing things their own way, but they're married, that kills it all. Everything is dead. Because you guys are married in a union, but one or both parents are doing whatever they want. So it's like they're two single parents making their own decisions for the kids, and the kids don't know really how things are supposed to go, who should they side with, or whatever. And kids are going to do what they should do as kids, the path of least resistance, and the parent that's showing them the most favor and giving them what they want. That's what we all do as humans. Which job are you going to take? Are you going to take the job that pays you less or the job that pays you more? You're going to take the job that pays you more unless there's some other significant drawback that makes the more money not worth it. Yeah, it pays me more, but it's outside and I live in Arizona. Damn it, that's hard. The job pays more, but it's a commission-based job where I stand to make so much more, but I've got to work so much harder and I'm going to miss a lot of dinners at home with the family. If you don't want to pay that price, then maybe that higher pay doesn't justify it. So when you are a parent and you get married, you really, really need to be on the same team, because you lying behind the back of the person that thinks they're your partner, it's like someone on your sports team, they take the playbook and they give it to the opponent before the game. Tell them like, hey, we run a lot of running plays to the right. And then the other team, and we're wondering now, why aren't our running plays working to the right? It's like someone gave them the playbook. And the player that knows they gave the playbook, they're just in the back, kind of rolling their eyes, kind of trying to be inconspicuous. It wasn't me. I'll deflect or something like that. And the coach is like, we'll do this, we'll do that next time we play them. And before that game, that same snake player gives the other team just a few. I'll give a few less this time. I'll give a few less plays, but or I'll tell them like, I'll touch my head if we're about to do it this time. I'll touch my head. So as long as someone's watching me and I touch my head, they can get the signal. That coach is going to be demoralized, because the coach is never going to know like, man, we lost that game. They outplayed us. And he's just thinking they outplayed us. He's yelling at the team. You guys didn't block. Blah, blah, blah. We must have given up signals. Guys, you suck. And let's get it together, and we'll get them next time. Or it's hard to say we'll get them next time because they just got their asses handed to them. And then if that player were to stand up and say, Coach, actually, we probably would have beat them by 40 like we expected with our game plan, but I gave the other team the playbook, so they saw everything coming. It's like, then the coach is like, what the fuck? So I don't even know if we actually lost or won the game. Every action that I took based on us losing was based on the knowledge that we lost because we just got beat and we were playing poorly. But now, knowing this critical piece of information that was omitted, they knew our game plan, and that's why we lost? Fuck.
Wow, that was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The daily saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.